The great chamber of the Galactic Council had stood for 10,000 years. Its walls were made of crystal that captured starlight from 100 suns, and its floors were polished stone from the homeworlds of every member species. Today, those floors trembled with the footsteps of representatives from 127 civilizations, all gathering for a single purpose. Ambassador Chen Wei walked alone down the central aisle. His simple gray suit looked plain compared to the elaborate robes, armor, and environmental suits of the aliens around him. Some had scales, others had fur or feathers. Some breathed oxygen like him, others wore masks that hissed and bubbled with strange gases. But despite their differences, they all watched him with the same expression. Fear disguised as anger. Chun had seen this coming for months. The whispers in the diplomatic halls, the canceled meetings, the way conversations stopped when human delegates entered a room. Humanity had been part of the galactic community for only 3 centuries, but in that short time, they had changed everything. The Vortheen were the first to speak. Their representative was tall and thin, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. The Vortheen were psychics, proud of their mental abilities that had taken millions of years to evolve. "Ambassador Chun," the Vortheen said, their voice echoing in everyone's mind simultaneously, "your species expands too quickly. You take worlds that others have claimed. You build weapons that disturb the peace." Chun folded his hands behind his back. "The worlds we colonized were unclaimed according to council law. Our weapons are for defense, as is our right." A Kishari delegate clicked forward on metallic legs. The Kishari were beings of living metal and artificial intelligence, masters of technology who had uplifted dozens of organic species. "Defense?" The Kishari's translated voice crackled through speakers. "You have built warships that rival our best designs. You have developed artificial intelligence that approaches our own complexity. It took us 100,000 years to reach this level. You have done it in 300. We learned from you," Chun replied calmly. "Isn't that what the Council encouraged? Sharing knowledge between species?" "You do not simply learn," growled the Drachmer general. "The Drachmer were warriors, evolved from pack hunters, with scales like armor and claws that could tear through steel. You improve. You innovate. You take what others have perfected over eons, and you make it better within decades. This is not natural." Chun felt his jaw tighten but kept his voice level. "Natural? Every species here evolved differently. The Vortheen read minds. The Gishari merge with machines. The Drachmer are born warriors. Humans adapt. That is our nature." The council chamber erupted in angry voices, chirps, growls, and telepathic noise. Chun stood silent in the center of it all, waiting. He knew what was coming. His government had known for months, ever since their intelligence networks detected the secret meetings between species that had been enemies for millennia. Fear, Chun had learned, was the one thing that could unite anyone. High Counselor Zarthax, an ancient being whose species had founded the council, raised 3 of his 4 arms for silence. His scaled face showed no emotion, but his eyes, all 6 of them, fixed on Chun with something that might have been regret. "Ambassador Jen Wei of Earth," Zarthax's voice was deep and resonant. "The council has reached a decision. Humanity's rapid expansion and technological advancement represents an unprecedented threat to galactic stability. We cannot allow one species to dominate through unchecked growth." Chun had prepared for this moment, but hearing the words still felt like a punch to the gut. "What are you proposing?" "The Council demands that humanity accept protective oversight. You will cease all military ship construction. You will submit all new technology for Council review. You will halt colonization efforts beyond your current systems. You will accept Council observers on all human worlds with full authority to ensure compliance." The chamber went silent. Every being present knew what this meant. It was subjugation wrapped in diplomatic language. Species that had accepted such terms in the past had slowly faded, their innovations stifled, their growth controlled, until they became little more than vassals. Chun took a slow breath. He thought of Earth, of the blue marble floating in space where his ancestors had looked up at the stars and dreamed. He thought of the colony worlds, of Mars and Europa, of New Shanghai and Nova Terra, of all the places where humans had planted flags and built homes. He thought of the children playing in those streets, who would grow up under alien oversight, their potential limited by beings who feared what they might become. "No," Chum said simply. The word hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. "No?" Zarthex repeated, as if he had misheard. "The answer is no," Chun said louder. "Humanity will not accept subjugation. We have broken no laws. We have honored every treaty. You meet here today, not because we have done wrong, but because you fear we might. You want to chain us not for crimes committed, but for potential you imagine. You do not understand the danger you represent," Dvorthine hissed into his mind. "I understand perfectly," Chun replied. "You've built a comfortable galaxy where everyone knows their place. The Vorthine handled diplomacy, the Kashari handled technology, the Drachmer handled security. Every species has their role, and you've maintained this balance for thousands of years. Then we arrived. We're not telepaths, but we developed philosophy and art. We're not made of metal, but we built computers. We're not born warriors, but we fought wars that would make the Drachmer weep. We don't fit into your boxes, and that terrifies you." "The Council has voted," Zarthex said coldly. 127 species, unanimous. You have one standard cycle to comply. If you refuse, the combined fleets of the galaxy will enforce this decision. You cannot fight us all, Ambassador Chun." Chun looked around the chamber one final time. He saw the fear in their eyes, the certainty, the righteousness. They truly believed they were doing the right thing. That made what was coming so much worse. "You're right," Chun said quietly. "We can't fight you all. But High Counselor, I want you to remember this moment. Remember that we didn't start this. Remember that we tried to talk. Remember that we warned you. Warned us?" Zarthex laughed, a harsh sound. "What warning?" "Humans have a saying," Chun replied. "You should never corner something meaner than you. We've been trying to be good neighbors, trying to fit in, trying to be peaceful. We've shown you our science, our art, our culture. What we haven't shown you is what we're capable of when you threaten our children." He turned and walked back down the aisle. Behind him, the council erupted in discussion, some delegates confident, others uncertain. Chun didn't look back. He had his orders. His government had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but they had prepared nonetheless. As he reached his ship, Chun sent a single encrypted message back to Earth, one word that would change the galaxy forever. Confirmed. The war would begin in 30 days. The galaxy had 1 month to prepare for something they couldn't imagine. Humanity had 3 centuries. 20 years after the war ended, Sarah Chun stood in the observation deck of Gateway Station, watching ships from a dozen different species dock and depart. She was Ambassador Chen Wei's granddaughter, born in the 3rd year of the war in Underground. Bunker on Mars. She had never known peace until she was 7 years old. Now she was 27 and working as a cultural liaison between human and Vorthine communities. It was strange work, trying to build trust between people who had been enemies, but someone had to do it. The alternative was another war, and Sarah had heard enough stories from her grandfather to know that nobody wanted that. "The morning traffic is always the worst," said a voice beside her. Sarah turned to see Kethis, her Vorthine colleague. Kethis was young too, barely 30 by Vorthine standards, which meant he was still practically a child by their long life standards. He had been born just before the war and had grown up in hiding, his people's telepathic abilities making them priority targets for human psychers. "At least nobody's shooting," Sarah replied with a slight smile. "Yes, I suppose that is an improvement," Kethis said. His command of human language had gotten much better over the years they'd worked together. He rarely used telepathy anymore except with other Vortheen, a habit formed during the war when broadcasting thoughts could get you killed. They watched as a massive Kishari cargo vessel docked, carrying raw materials from their manufacturing worlds. Under the peace terms, the Kishari had been required to share their production technology with all species. Many Kishari had been angry about this, claiming humans were stealing what had taken them millions of years to develop. But their government had no choice. What surprised everyone was that within 5 years, Kishari production had actually increased. Human engineers, working alongside Kishari technicians, had found inefficiencies that the Kishari had been too set in their ways to see. The Kishari were learning to innovate again, and while some resented the humans for it, others were excited by the possibilities. "Did you hear about the colony?" Kethis asked. "Which one?" "New Harmony, the joint colony in the Epsilon sector. The first one with Vortheen, humans, and Drachmer all living together." Sarah nodded. She had read the reports. It was a bold experiment, putting together 3 species that had fought bitterly during the war. The Drachmer, in particular, had taken losses that still haunted their military culture. Many of their warriors had committed ritual suicide after the surrender, unable to live with the shame of defeat. "How's it going?" Sarah asked. Kethis's expression was hard to read. The Vortheen didn't have facial muscles like humans, but Sarah had learned to interpret the subtle color shifts in their skin. Right now, Kethis looked cautiously optimistic. Better than expected. There was a fight last week between some young Drachmer and human colonists. But instead of escalating, the adults from both sides worked together to resolve it. The children were punished and made to apologize. It was very human. Human? Yes, the Drachmer would traditionally handle such matters through combat. The Vortheen would use telepathy to enforce social pressure. But they did it the human way. Talking, negotiating, compromising. It's spreading. Sarah felt a strange pride at that. Is that good or bad? "I don't know," Kethis admitted. "My people are afraid of losing who we are. We spent millions of years developing our culture. Humans have been in space for barely 400 years now, and already you're changing everything. Sometimes I wonder if the Council was right to fear you." Sarah turned to face him fully. This was the kind of conversation that could never have happened during the war. "But you're still here, working with me. Because," Kethis said slowly, "fear without understanding leads to war. We learned that. And as much as humans are changing us, we're changing you too. Human telepaths trained by Vortheen methods are different from natural human psychics. Humans working with Kishari are learning patience and long-term thinking. Your people are not the same as they were before you met us." "Maybe that's the point," Sarah suggested. "Maybe we're all supposed to change each other." They were interrupted by an announcement that their next meeting was starting. Sarah and Kethis headed to a conference room where representatives from various species were gathering to discuss educational standards for mixed species colonies. It was boring work, arguing about curriculum and teaching methods. But it was the kind of work that prevented wars. Halfway across the galaxy, Admiral Tanaka, now retired, sat in her small house on Earth overlooking the Pacific Ocean. She was 77 years old, and her body ached with the old injuries that came from years in combat. She had been giving a lecture that morning to young officers at the Naval Academy about the war. They had asked her the same questions everyone asked. Why had humanity won? What made the difference? Tanaka had told them the truth: luck, determination, and the willingness to do whatever it took to survive. She didn't romanticize it. She told them about the friends she'd lost, the moral compromises she'd made, the nights she couldn't sleep because of what she'd ordered others to do. One young officer, barely 20 years old, had asked her if it was worth it. Tanaka had thought about that question for a long time before answering. "Ask me again in 50 years, she'd finally said. "If your children and the children of our former enemies are living together in peace, then yes, it was worth it. If we're preparing for another war, then no. The answer isn't in what we did. It's in what you do next." Now, sitting on her porch, she received a message on her old military datapad. It was from Valinus, the Vorthene Elder. They had maintained an irregular correspondence over the years. Two old beings who had seen too much war and hoped for better futures. The message was simple. The first class of the new Galactic Academy graduated today. 43 species represented. Students worked in mixed teams on their final projects. Top honors went to a team of humans, Vorthene, and Kishari, who designed a new type of medical scanner. They combined human adaptability, Vorthene telepathic sensitivity, and Kishari technical precision. It worked better than anything any species had made alone. Perhaps there is hope after all. Tanaka smiled and sent back an equally simple reply. Perhaps? In the council chambers, now rebuilt and redesigned to be less imposing and more welcoming, High Counselor Zarthex prepared for his final session. He was stepping down after 50 years of service, the last 20 spent trying to repair the damage his decision had caused. The galaxy had changed dramatically in 2 decades. The old power structures had broken down. The Vorthene were no longer the undisputed masters of diplomacy. The Kishari no longer held a monopoly on advanced technology. The Drachmer were learning that there were other forms of strength besides military might. And humans, the species that had been a threat to galactic order, had become the glue holding a fractured civilization together. It wasn't because humans were better, Zarthex had come to understand. It was because they were different in a way the galaxy needed. They brought change, innovation, and a refusal to accept that things had to stay the way they'd always been. They were uncomfortable to live with, challenging and unpredictable. But they made the galaxy grow in ways it hadn't grown in millions of years. Ambassador Chen Wei, now an old man himself, approached Zarthex after the session. "I wanted to thank you," Chen said. "Thank me? For what? Starting a war that killed billions?" "For ending it," Chen replied. "You could have kept fighting. You could have let pride destroy everything. Instead, you surrendered and worked to build something better. That took courage." Zarthex looked at the human with something like wonder. "After everything we did to your people, you thank me for surrendering?" "I thank you for choosing peace over pride," Chen said. "That's not nothing." They stood together in the empty chamber. Two old beings from different worlds who had watched their civilizations try to destroy each other and had somehow found a way forward. "Do you think it will last?" Zarthex asked. "This peace? I don't know," Chen admitted. "There are humans who still hate your people. There are aliens who still fear us. The wounds we gave each other won't heal in a single generation. But my granddaughter works with the Vorthene every day, and their friends. New colonies are being founded where our children grow up together. Maybe that's enough." "Is it strange," Zarthex asked quietly, "that I find myself grateful that we lost?" Chung considered that. "Yes, but I understand it. If you had won, you would have suppressed us, and eventually, we would have risen again. It would have been an endless cycle of rebellion and subjugation. This way, we're all free to be what we are, even if what we are makes each other uncomfortable sometimes." "Uncomfortable," Zarthex laughed, a sound like grinding stones. "Humans are masters of understatement. Far away, on a frontier world at the edge of known space. A young human girl named Maya sat with her Drachma friend Kreth, watching the sunset. The sky was purple and gold, colors that didn't exist on Earth, but that Maya had known her whole life. She had been born here, on a world discovered jointly by human and Drachma explorers. My grandfather says that before the war, our peoples would have fought over this planet, Maya said. Mine says the same, Kreth replied, his translator rendering his growling speech into something Maya could understand. He says the Drachma would have claimed it by right of combat. The humans would have claimed it by right of discovery, and many would have died over dirt and rocks. It's pretty dirt and rocks, though, Maya said with a grin. Kreth made a sound that might have been laughter. Yes, it is. My grandfather also says something else. He says the war was the worst thing that ever happened to our species, and also the best thing. How can it be both? Because we lost everything, Kreth explained. Our pride, our certainty, our place in the galaxy. But in losing those things, we found something else. We found that we could change, that we could be more than what we had always been. Your people taught us that. Maya thought about that as the sun dipped below the horizon. My grandfather says humans taught the galaxy to adapt, but I think maybe the galaxy taught us to belong. They sat together as the stars came out, too. Children of former enemies, watching the same sky, dreaming the same dreams of futures they would build together. The galaxy had united against humanity and lost everything. But in losing, they had gained something they never knew they needed. The chance to become something new. The war would never be forgotten. The monuments to the dead stood on 100 worlds. The stories would be told for generations. But alongside the memorials were new buildings, schools where children of different species learned together, hospitals where medicine was shared freely, spaceports where ships from all civilizations mingled without fear. The galaxy had learned the hard way that fear of change could destroy everything. Now they were learning something harder. That change, however uncomfortable, was how life moved forward. And somewhere on Earth, an old woman named Tanaka looked up at the stars and allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, the children of the future would never have to fight the war she had fought. That would be victory enough.